So we'll call the meeting to order at 6:08. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none. Seeing none, I'll go to members of the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak?
Richard,
Yes, Laura.
do you have two devices going by any chance? There's like a weird noise happening.
I don't think so. Oh, wow.
Or does somebody else?
Mark's keeps.
I'm not hearing anything.
I hear it. I wonder if it would help if people would mute their mics unless they're speaking.
Is that better now? I was hearing it from somebody else, I guess. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak? If you do, if you're on a phone, you can press *9, and if you're online, just unmute yourself. Matt, are you running the meeting?
I'm watching the participants list to look for hands, and I'm the host.
Okay.
The most.
Members of the staff, is there anybody from the staff that would like to speak? Okay, and I just see there's one person just has one first name, Scott. Do you know who that is, Peter, for your list?
I was about to ask.
Scott Salway. Salway, Scott? Okay, thank you, Scott. So reviewing,
Okay.
Pardon, Scott?
That's okay. I'm here, right?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, because it only shows Scott, just so he has a record, okay? Review and approve the minutes of December 7th, the Pearl Harbor Day meeting. Somebody make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move that we approve the minutes of Monday, December 7th.
Okay, so it's definitely your mic, Mark, that's messed up. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so Mark moved and Kate seconded to approve the December 7th, 2020 meeting minutes. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, but if you can't hear me, that's going to be a problem.
Go ahead, try it.
Okay. On the third page, the third to last paragraph says, Ms. Garland explained that this is still outsourced for 2020. I don't think that is correct. We're no longer outsourcing lunch at all.
Got it.
Was that it, Mark?
Nope, I got a couple more. Those are small. Sorry, give me 1 second. On the 1, 2, 3, on the 5th page, under ventilation system update, the second to last line at the end, it says would grant confirm. I assume that means would confirm grant. And I think that's it.
Okay, Kate, do you have any of the second person seconds it?
No, no comments.
Okay, you guys ready to vote? If you are, all those in favor of approving the minutes with Mark's corrections signify so by saying aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now have the minutes approved. Correspondence. I have one thing of correspondence, and the board's gonna have to tell me what you want to do with it. It's an anonymous letter to the board, and in the past on anonymous letters, we've just ignored them. What do you folks want to do with an anonymous letter?
I think since we're a public body, we probably have to pass it by if it's anonymous.
Do we have any idea if it's a resident or anybody out of town, or it could be anybody?
They claim to be a parent, or they claim to be a member of the school community, but they didn't put their name to it. They wanted it to be anonymous.
Okay.
So, may I, Richard?
No, you can ask anything you want.
If it's an accusation of wrongdoing against someone, that feels inappropriate if somebody hasn't signed their name to it. And like something maybe that needs to be taken up in executive session. If it's not an accusation of wrongdoing, then, I would defer.
It's not an accusation of wrongdoing, no.
Do we have a policy, Richard, around this?
We've never had a written policy because we don't want to have written policies for everything that we do. What we did have was, in the past, especially with Dover, we haven't had a lot with River Valleys, is that if a person didn't want to, unless a person was willing to give their name or say who they were, we would just pass over it, because in the past we felt it wasn't as important as if they brought it up themselves. So again, it was never a policy, it was never a procedure.
And do we know if it is, does anybody know if it actually came from a parent or a school community member?
Well, that's what the letter claims.
But does anybody know that?
Tammy, it was given, I'm passing along a letter that was sent to me anonymously as correspondence. That's what Tammy sent me. So, Tammy, you don't know where it came from, do you? You just got it in the mail? So Tammy got in the mail.
Does it?
Oh, hang on, Laura. Go ahead, Matt.
You have a hand up, Mark. Mark's hand is up.
Mark who?
Mark Schober.
I don't even see him on the, oh, down there. Go ahead, Mark. And then Laura, we'll come back to you.
Sorry, I'm keeping my video off with the hopes of being able to stay connected. My personal opinion would be that if we don't have the name, that it should not be presented.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Anybody else from the board? Any opinion, thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if, that we are also setting a precedent that anyone who writes a letter will have to read it, and since we don't have a policy, I would agree that it shouldn't be read unless it's named to it.
Matt?
You have two hands up. You have Peter Barris in the public and Jessica Lee Smith in the public.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, my issue would be whether the person has standing as a resident member of the public, and there's no way to tell.
Okay, and the parent, Smith?
Hi, I just wanted to say, first of all, it's not me that wrote the letter. I don't know if you guys think that, but I was just going to say that I think that it is fair when it comes to, like, I feel like with these open meetings, they're silencing everybody outside of the boards by cutting off the chats, doing this, that, and the other thing. A lot of people don't feel comfortable talking, but that doesn't mean they don't have a right to express their opinion. You can't always keep a controlled environment. You know, sometimes you're going to hear things you might not like, but you can contest them and you can, you know, say your argument. You know, an open meeting, shouldn't that be open to, like, why are you taking anonymous votes, for example? Because, you know, some people don't want people to know who they voted for. So why should they be penalized for that? You know, and you might not like what they're going to say, but you could always address it, you know? I know what you're saying about, you said the thing about the residency and all that, but I'm saying, isn't it just, you know, maybe it's somebody that feels like they can't say who they are for some other reason that you might not be against, you know? All right, that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And again, the letter is not, it's not accusatory. It's just, it's a letter from someone who claims to be a parent. And the policy's always been, because if this was an open meeting, people can come into the open meeting too. So I think that was the issue. But I'm not hearing any support to read the letter. So,
Richard,
yeah. Go ahead, Laura.
Laura. I think it would just be good at this time to briefly help people understand that if they're not comfortable coming to speak at a meeting, they have options available to them to express their concerns. They can bring their concerns. The proper way, if you're a parent, is to bring your concern first to the teacher, then to the principal, and then to the superintendent. And that is something that is available if folks are not feeling comfortable coming to a meeting. It's very important to remember that this is a public body that is elected by all of the residents in the towns of Dover and Wilmington, or Wardsboro, excuse me. And we have to make difficult decisions. It's often, you know, that we're disappointing folks when we make decisions. And I understand that it can be intimidating to come in front of a board. That's our job, and citizens' job is to, you know, tell us when there are things that we are missing. So if folks feel like they aren't comfortable coming to a meeting and identifying themselves or signing their name to a letter, which is the proper way you would interact with the board, there are other avenues that are available. So that's all I have to say, Richard. I do not support addressing it if it's not a public safety issue by the board.
And again, I think too, that they don't have to come to a public meeting. They don't have to go online. They just have to sign their name to the letter. So hearing no support for reading it, we're going to pass over the letter. Tammy, if somebody sends you another anonymous letter or sends you a letter saying it was them that sent it, then I'll be more than happy. We'll take it up at the next meeting, okay? Moving into old business, we got the annual meeting structure. Again, this was, Andy was going to come. I got an email from Andy saying he had really no new information. I think there's going to be a little bit of a waiting game until we see what the legislature does. I did speak to, and somebody from Wardsboro is going to have to help me, a lady on the Wardsboro Select Board. I think you have co-chairs up there, about what we were going to do, because Wardsboro hasn't decided what they want to do yet for their town meeting. So one of the things we talked about was, since this year our meeting is supposed to be in Wardsboro and it's not until April, Wardsboro was thinking possibly of renting a tent and having an outdoor meeting. So I said, well, we haven't really decided yet. So that's something that we can bring up. If they're going to rent a tent, maybe we can split it with them. So I think for now, we can just postpone any discussion on that until sometime in January. Obviously, we don't have to warn stuff until March. In February, we don't have to adopt our budget till February. So we're in a little better shape than a lot of the municipalities because we already set our meeting off. So it's almost like we had foresight last year that this was coming.
Richard?
Yeah.
So I apologize. I did hear with my other hat on from the chair of the Wardsboro Select Board, who told me that they were looking to move the date out.
Okay, sounds good. Matt, did you have somebody besides Laura?
Just Laura.
Thank you. Dwight, go ahead.
Sorry. What about the election of officers for the chair, the board positions for Wardsboro? Wasn't that done at the annual meeting in Wardsboro last year? So do we have to address that sooner than later?
I don't know, to be honest. Do you know who's up in Wardsboro? Kate will have to run. So
I think I am.
You and Kate both have to run then.
Kate as well. Okay.
Right. So because she was voted in by the board to fill a position to the next regular or special meeting, annual or special meeting. So Kate will need to run, and she'll run for the 2 years remaining on that position, and you'll run for 3 years. And what you don't have to, all you have to do is go to the town clerk's office, and if they're going to do it by ballot, you have to just sign a piece of paper authorizing your name to be on there. You don't have to go collect signatures on a petition this year. And if they're doing it from the floor, I think you would just wait until such time as as they do actually have the meeting, and then you would just get elected from the floor like you do now. Mark is going to enlighten us, though, I think. Go ahead.
I think that's true. We get elected, we're elected from the floor. But I do know last year was a bit clumsy, and then we had some discussion of possibly changing that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
So if Wardsboro is going to do their town meeting by Australian ballot, I think we as a board are going to have to vote to do the election of the Wardsboro representatives. I don't think that their choosing to do it would automatically change the way we have to do it.
Okay. Well, we still got a little bit of time.
Oh yeah.
So we'll have to figure that out, but just pay attention that Dwight and Kate, if you want to run again, and Dwight, if you want to run again.
Okay.
Hey, guys. Hey, Matt and Tammy, can you do a ventilation system update? Or does one of you just want to do it for both buildings? Whatever's easiest for you two.
I can speak for Wardsboro. I'm not sure about Dover.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Okay, great. So as far as I know, all the upgrades and the equipment have been installed. They are coming back next week on Monday and Tuesday to hook up all of the controls, and we should be up and running by the beginning of the new year. So when we come back on the 4th, we should be almost 100% where we need to be.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions for Tammy before we let her go back into hiding? No? Thank you, Tammy. You did good. Matt?
Dover is at the moment is about half completed in terms of completely done in terms of the unit ventilators. About half the unit ventilators are still in progress. And the software is installed and accessible. Everything is coming together a little bit slower than planned. We'd hope to have things finished by the end of December. However, the parts that were on order for some of the roof vents still haven't arrived. And I don't have an estimated arrival on those at this point. But it's progressing slowly at this point. And again, we're waiting on some more parts to arrive.
Maybe Santa Claus will put them in your stocking for you, Matt.
I don't know which vent he's going to come down at school, but I hope it's a good one.
Okay. Anybody got any questions for Matt? Go ahead, Mark.
The ERV, is that still expected to be on site before the end of the year?
I was expecting the ERV around week 1 or week 2 of December, and it's still not on site. So I'm not optimistic, but I have not received a specific delivery ETA on it just yet.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else for Matt before we go on? Okay, thank you. Good job, Matt. Update on the January 4th to January 8th in-person instruction. I don't know if Tammy or Matt, when you want to speak to it, I know there was something in the update from Bill.
Sure, I'll just say that we have staff to open the buildings in person, and that's really all there is. School will be open on the 4th.
Tammy shaking her head, so you're good too, Tammy?
The same is true for Wardsboro.
Okay. Mark, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that I understood the letter correctly and that the public is aware that pre-K and is still going to be remote for that week.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Pre-K at Dover and pre-K in Wardsboro will be remote that week.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Waiting study update. I am going to ask Laura if she's got good enough internet connection to kind of give us a little bit of an update on that. And then Mark can talk about VSBA. And Mark, I'll let you talk about Wyndham Central if you don't mind too. So Laura, you want to just give us an update on the waiting study?
We have not talked about it at this board, is that right?
No, we have at the last meeting. We talked about it at Wyndham Central. I was going to just let you update us, as I know you introduced the bill. I don't know if there's anything new on that since last Wednesday.
Yeah, I have not introduced it yet. It is still being drafted.
Sorry.
I am, and I think I went over the elements of it. I am having it modeled to look at what rolling in the poverty weight over 3 years, the same 3 years that we are rolling, that we are kind of mitigating the property tax effect for currently overweighted districts, what that would look like, and if it would act as somewhat of a shock absorber. The poverty weight, for those that aren't familiar with those, is the highest weight. It is pretty dramatic. It's and likely to have the largest number of students probably in that weight. So because it's so high, it will increase significantly in the first year, even if we were rolling it in over 3 years. So I'm waiting to hear back on getting some modeling out of the legislature's fiscal analyst office. The senior fiscal analyst who deals with education policy is on leave till March 1st. Luckily, there is a second who is pretty capable. And, oh yes, we did talk about it because I talked to Rick. Okay, sorry. And that's that. I probably won't get introduced until the beginning of the year.
Okay, Matt, I had Mark next, and then do you have somebody after that? Okay, I'll get right back to you. Mark, do you want to just talk a little bit about oh, Laura, are you still talking to us? Okay. Mark, do you want to, can you just update on VSBA, and then I'll let you do the Wyndham Central update if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. Unfortunately, there's not an awful lot to report from the VSBA. We will be taking it up again, probably not next month, but the month after. The board, for the most part, seemed to want to take a wait and see attitude towards the legislation. So unfortunately, I don't have anything great to report from the VSBA. The WCSU, though, at our meeting, what was it, last Wednesday, took up a letter that was authored by Doug Kolb.
Corb.
Corb. That's close. Who is the chair of the Marlboro School District Board. That in relatively strong words, encourages the legislature to move on implementing the recommended weights. So the board took that up and ended up voting to send it to the legislature with the approval of the whole board and signed by our chair. So that's where we're at with that.
And then also we announced at that meeting too that Rick was going to represent the river valleys, that we kind of voted on that at the last meeting, and Rick had agreed to. I know Mark and was going to try to get onto the Burlington call and was hoping that Rick got the information. Mark had an internet malfunction, and Rick, did you make it to that meeting?
I did not make it to that. I did not have the information in time. I did write an email, and then I wrote a second email to the contact. I believe it was Mike Fisher, Mark, that you had given me up in Burlington, but I have not received a response to date.
Okay, well, Mark, maybe you can help with that, or Laura. I know you know some of those people. So Rick, get hold of Laura, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so you'll keep on top of that for us between Mark with the VSBA and Laura up in Most Peculiar and Rick with the Burlington people. Is there any other thoughts, questions about that? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. I told you I'd get back to you and I lied to you. Go ahead.
So we have Jessica Smith, who's a parent, with her hand up. And then I have a question for Laura, going back a little bit.
Well, go ahead. You ask your question, then we'll get Jessica if she can wait a minute.
Laura, my question is about the weighting study. Just going back, I wondered what poverty data they'll be using to factor in. Is it free and reduced lunch counts or census data? Just curious.
I do not have that answer for you, Matt. I will get that answer for you.
Peter, can you just make sure that's in the minutes that Matt was interested in that? And no, Matt, you know what? If we don't, we'll forget about it over the holidays. And that's important because there's been times when, Dover and Wardsboro have had very high poverty rates, but the legislature doesn't believe it, because they're looking at like Rutland and Burlington. So that's a really good point. Thank you, Matt. Jessica Smith, if you go ahead and unmute yourself and if you have a question or a comment.
Yeah, I wanted to just ask Mr. Martin as well. I know you guys were just talking about something. I don't know if it's the same thing I was reading about in the email with the funding for the, like the poverty thing. Is that, what kind of funding is that? Those grants that you got, what is that for? Like to offset the prices that those kids are not paying?
The free and
just trying to understand it.
Yeah. So Jessica, what they used to do is they used to look at our free and reduced lunch rates to determine the poverty levels, or that was one of the determinations. And that's why we always encourage, like 20 years ago, even if you could afford lunch, apply, because the standards were so high that, if both husband and the mother and the father were working and they had like more than 2 kids, almost everybody qualified for some sort of reduced lunch, and it would just go towards your count. They've recently changed what they look at for poverty. They do a census study, they look at the tax returns, and they use some other information. So that's what we're trying to find out. So I don't have a specific answer for you right now, but we will be discussing it again in the future. And that's part of this whole weighting study that Ann Manwaring from years ago tried to get going, and Laura finally got it through, where it says that a lot of the rural districts have a lot of extra costs that more suburban or city districts don't. So that's what that's about. If that's good with you, or if that's okay, you understand that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. If there's nothing else on the weighting study, I see we have a phone number down there. If you can, Matt, just or somebody can figure out who that is so we can add that to the list. Somebody's a 970 number. If you can just, I don't know how you do that, Matt. Can they just get something to you, or can you just send them a?
Yeah, if they just tell me their name, I can adjust their phone number so that it shows like their name.
And I don't care if it shows your name, just as long as Peter has it. So that's all I had for old business, unless I missed something that somebody else wants me to bring up.
Rich?
Yes.
If you want the name of that person on the phone number, you should ask them to unmute themselves and give it to us now.
Okay, somebody at 970-903-4602, can you just unmute yourself and tell us who you are? I guess that didn't work either. Okay. Moving on. If there's nothing for old business, I'll move into new business. I had approved accounts payable, Matt or Tammy. I got nothing from payables. Did you guys? Okay. We'll move over that one. I'll go to principal's report. In the principal's report, there was a letter that kind of announced to the families what was happening the week after vacation. And then there was also a written, principal's report. I believe it was one page. So other than what was in the written report, does Matt or Tammy, do you have anything else for us? No, anybody have any questions? Something in the report or another burning issue? Okay. Superintendent's report. We had a cabinet report to the board. Bill's not here to answer that. Is there anything that anybody wants us to ask of the superintendent between now and then that was in the report that you want to know more about or you have more information about? Go ahead, Mr. Schauber.
All right, so I've got some notes. It's been a while since I looked at this, so I'm sort of guessing what I wanted to know. On page 3, towards the bottom, there's the IAQ pilot program. I couldn't remember what IAQ stood for, so that was one question.
I think it's indoor air quality.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Then on the next page, in the middle has the VSBA safety grant. I just wanted to know whether that was going to cover the cost 100%. And then lower down on that page, where under Director of Special Education says, I have also continued to work regionally.
Mark, hang on one sec. Matt, can you answer that on that VSBA on the handicap ramp? Does that cover it 100%?
I'm sorry, I can't answer it, but I can check into it.
Okay, so you'll just get back to us on that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mark. Let's just cover these as you go through them to see if we can get answers tonight.
Sure, no problem. So on that same page, the second to last paragraph, the Director of Special Education is talking about working more regionally. And I was wondering, what, being relatively new on the board, what the Bridges program is.
Matt or Tammy, can one of you handle that for me? You got to unmute yourself, Tammy.
Sorry about that. The Bridges is a math intervention program that our academic support team uses for kids that need tier 2 interventions.
Great, thank you. And on the last page, last paragraph, under audits, talk about in the second line, due to recent guidance from the AOE. I was wondering what that recent guidance was that affected the trial balances.
So, we're gonna go over the audit, Mark, with Lori as soon as it's completed. So the trial balances are usually the balances that the bookkeepers send to the auditors. And it looks like because of some of the funding and that the AOE is changing what will count for funding and what doesn't count for funding, it probably just means that they aren't sure if they're going to be covered expenses or not. So I'm sure we'll go over that more when we do review the audit. We were having a lot of issues with our audit because switching from Dover to River Valleys, Dover was still using Sullivan and Hayes or Sullivan and Powers, and they were really jerking Lori along quite a bit and never got her the information she needed to close things out. So it was creating quite a problem. So I think the second meeting in January, we have Lori to discuss that, because that's also going to help determine what we do with the budget too, because that'll tell us what we have for surplus or from the previous years. We still haven't been able to close out the surplus for a couple of years. So I think that will be answered, and just keep that question in your pocket. And Peter, if you could just note that one and the other one that Matt and Tammy didn't have an answer to, and then we'll get those answers at the next meeting.
10-4.
Is that good, Mark?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, and Matt and Tammy, you did really good. You got like 2 out of 3. I think they wrote a song about that. So, future planning discussion. Oh, Superintendent, anybody else in Superintendent after Mark? Okay, future planning discussions. Anybody know what that's about? I do. So way back when, we had discussions about the future of, River Valleys, even before we started. And some of you have been there from the beginning, and some of you, like Dwight, was on the planning group with us. And I believe, we had a bunch of different thoughts. And one of the things we wound up doing is we had kind of just taken the 2 schools and not a lot changed. And we kept talking about having a deeper dive into things like cost savings and how we could do, transportation. Was there a better way to do transportation now that we had the 2 schools? I don't know if that's why Todd is on. But we also had some other different conversations about, the look of the school and how we wanted to do things. I know we had talked about, and one of the things in our planning had been personalized education plans for all the students. And we're going to start with the 6th and 5th and 4th grade and work our way backwards. And, we don't know where that ever came up. And now that we've actually been operating for a couple of years, I think maybe this spring and summer, hopefully everybody, the virus will be over. We can start meeting again in real life. And maybe we charge our administration with looking into whatever we want to have them look into. I know that the central office spent a lot of time with the West River group, and they gave them, I forget, if I don't remember, it was a dozen, maybe Peter remembers from the minutes, like 12 or 14 different options. Everything from, nothing changes to they become a totally completely tuitioning school district. They tuition all grades, pre-K right through 12. To see where they, are they getting a good cost-effective use of their money, and what programs are working. So what I want to do is I just want to get this under new business now, because I want you guys over Christmas break to think about things that, that the schools need or could use, or things we think may help improve the school. Or Matt, Tammy, I'd like you to maybe mention to the staff before vacation, are there things that we could do better? Are there things we're doing really well? Or are there things that we're not doing at all that we should try doing? I think it's a good chance for us to kind of look, now that we've operated for a little while, and see, where we could move forward. I also don't wonder if this pandemic hasn't maybe going to change the way some education is done. I don't know. I know Laura's been one for years, has talked about Zoom, not Zoom meetings, but like being able to do board meetings online. And we've tried it a few times and it didn't work very well, but we're getting pretty good at it now. And some of the education being done online, is that helpful to people or not? And, one of the things we talked a little bit about was the consortium there that does the online education by grade. Would that make sense for us to kind of join into? So I think there's a bunch of things out there, but I don't want to tie ourselves into just looking at a couple things. I'd like to, look at the whole big picture with everybody and see where we could maybe go. So I just wanted to put that bug in your ear before your holiday break, because sometimes when we're relaxing, our best thinking is done. So it's something that we'll keep on the agenda, Peter, for a while, and we'll just kind of keep moving it forward.
And for.
Thank you, buddy. Hey, Todd, I hate to pick on you, but are you on for a specific thing that I missed, or? No, maybe not. Financials, I don't know. I think that was there if Lori was going to be here, and she isn't, so I don't remember why that's in there. I think that takes us, unless somebody's got some other new business. Go ahead, Mark.
I don't see it on the agenda. Were we going to discuss the annual report at all?
No, I think we'll do that when we do the budgeting stuff. We don't have to have that together. And
Okay.
I do that with central office because they have a person who's going to be putting it together. I know that Bill did send that to us though to look at, and again, look at it over the holidays. And if there's, I think it's a pretty good format. I think we can reuse it. We just have to update the information. If there's nothing else, we're going to move into policies. So we have 3 existing policies. First one is C1, student records. Mark or Kate, who wants to speak to that one?
I can speak to them. So we looked over the policy. Don't have any changes to recommend. So we were proposing that we just mark the review date as today. And we'll review it again in another 2 or 3 years, depending on how our cycle flushes out.
Would you like to make that a motion, Mark?
Yes, I will make that a motion that we mark C1 policy as reviewed on today's date.
Do I have a second to that?
A second. Great.
Rick seconds it. So the motion's made and seconded that policy C1, student records, they're just adding a word, unified. And so there's no major changes, so that it's been reviewed on this date. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Hey, Laura, are you an aye?
Yes, aye.
Okay, so you just voted yourself Queen of Dover. Okay. The motion carries. The ayes have it unanimously. The ayes have it. Next one is C2, student alcohol and drugs. This is the one that says they can't bring any alcohol to school, correct?
Yes. Or drugs.
Okay.
The committee reviewed it, and other than adding unified in the district name, we updated the cross references only because the VSBA had forgotten to update them when they last updated the policy. So it was just a matter of updating the numbers, the policy numbers. And therefore, we are just recommending, not just, we are recommending that that it be marked as reviewed on today's date, and I will make that a motion.
Okay, do I have a second to the motion, Kate?
Kate seconds.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Mark, you had discussion. Just so everybody knows too, because this, I forgot to mention this earlier. If there's no major changes and just correcting the name or re-referencing it is not considered a substantial change. So we are allowed to just vote that we reviewed it and then we carry it forward, which is the recommendation of our policy group. So if there's no discussion, are you guys ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of policy C2, student alcohol and drugs being reviewed today's date, please signify so by saying aye.
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 Appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it unanimously. Moving on, C50, age of admission, students pre-K and kindergarten. Mark or Kate?
So the committee is recommending that we change the code from C35 to C50 to be in line with our newly adopted code policy numbers. So because this is a purely RVUSD policy, it's not coming from the VSBA. We are recommending a change in language. And I asked Bill to send out C35 to everybody, what is current, so you'd be able to see the change. It is, and if I can find my original C35, in each of the 3 paragraphs, we wordsmithed it to take out that I think it was a child desires. I don't have it in front of me, but child desires, and reworded that to be a child who will enter, in this case, the first one, 3-year-old program. We thought that was just a lot more clear, and that children aren't really making the decisions themselves either. So, so that same change is made in the first 3 paragraphs, and then the last line where it says there shall not be, we truncated that after the word students, just for brevity and clarity. So we are recommending that we rewarn it because there are substantial changes, and I will make that a motion.
And you don't think the students, the children themselves are deciding they want to go?
Well, they're welcome to come to the meeting and object.
So Mark, you made a motion that the former C35 be C50?
Correct. And be rewarned with the updated language.
Okay, so we're going to warn this one. We're just not going to review it.
Correct.
Okay. And do I have a second to that? Okay, Kate.
Kate can second that. Yeah.
Mark and Kate moved. Peter, are you good with the motion? This one's not a review. This is going to have to be posted.
Yes, I'm saying to rewarn policy C35 under the new name C50, age of admission,
Okay, and other changes. There's several changes.
as amended.
Okay, perfect. Mark, you get first. Motion's made and seconded. You get first. Any other comments?
No, I think that's it.
Kate, you good?
I'm good. No other comments.
Actually,
Anybody-
I do have
Go ahead,
one.
Mark.
I want to thank Tammy, Kate, and Matt, especially for helping. It took us a little while to re-wordsmith this to come up with what made sense. So I just want to thank you guys for the help.
So it's interesting, Mark. This is when I became chairman of the school board. This was one of the first policies that we got challenged under because almost every few years we get somebody who says my child should be able to come into whatever grade, and it's such an argument. So This has been a policy that we've had for a long time in Dover. I don't know, Rick may know when it started in Wardsboro, or if this is just something that they acquired from when the Dover and Wardsboro went together, but.
Rich had a question.
Go ahead, Dwight.
So I'm just curious, how is it determined for children who are older than 5 years old, what grade they enter? Is there a policy for someone entering in the 4th or 5th grade where they would be placed, or is that just something that's handled by the principals?
Well, I believe it's handled by our principals, but let's let them weigh in. Go
Okay.
ahead, or Tammy. Matt's being so gentlemanly tonight, Tammy.
I guess it's because typically children are just entering school, right? That it's so specific to the younger ages. I mean, usually a third, fourth, or fifth grader, that's already been determined for them when they enter our schools at that time. It would be very unusual for us to have a 8, 9, or 10-year-old that hadn't previously been enrolled in a school unless they were homeschooling. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Matt.
Yeah, one thing we see, and we saw quite a lot of it this year with all the influx of new families, is kids coming from other schools that may not have met our age requirement. So what we've done in that case is we enroll them in the next grade that they would have been enrolled in regardless of their age, unless there's some other reason to, to question that. So occasionally some parents will be like, my kid just finished 4th, but I really want them to go into 6th with you this year. And we have to kind of work through that. Or, maybe they'll say, oh, my kid just finished 4th, but they need to redo 4th because, they weren't keeping up and remote learning was terrible. And so, all those things play in. And sometimes we have to lean on the grade advancement policy, which is very helpful as well. So those are some things we use to make those decisions, Dwight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's the only point I was going to bring up, Matt. Thank you. Is there is an advancement policy too, because and I know we've given, I believe in that one, the final decision is to the administrators, and you can't appeal that to anybody. I mean, the administrators, based on input from the staff members and from the families and the parents and any other resources, but that has been some arguments in the past too, that my child should be a grade up, or it shouldn't be held back. So a lot of interesting stuff with that. So anybody else? Are we all ready to vote? Everybody good? Okay. All those in favor of warning policy C50, former C35, age of admission students pre-K kindergarten. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, it appears as though it's unanimous for the ayes. The ayes have it. Next 3 are new policies.
Excuse me, Rich, and sorry to interrupt. I do have to leave at 7. I apologize. I have somewhere else I need to be.
Okay. Hey, Dwight, have a good holiday. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
If you can come back, just check in if you can, because we got an executive session on that legal issue.
Happy New Year, Dwight.
Okay, Mark, policy committee is recommending 3 new policies. These are recommended. These are not mandatory policies. The first one, Mark, is B20. Mark and Kate, personnel recruitment, selection, appointment, and background checks.
Kate, you want to take these since I jumped on the other ones?
Sure. I might have a little bit of an audio delay with the fun internet speeds this evening. So this one, Mark and I and Tammy and Matt, we talked about it. Although this is commonly put into practice at this point in time, we just wanted to ensure that there was a policy in place just in case, any team members changed, that this is the way that we move forward, and we continue to do so. So yeah, that we just have this policy in place to manifest our intentions.
Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion? This would need to be warned and it'll have to be posted by Matt and Tammy in all our normal locations, and then we would get a second chance to vote on it after it's been warned for 14 days. Go ahead,
I
Kate.
can make a motion. Oh, I
Go
can go ahead and make a motion that we warn this policy, B20 for personal recruitment.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Kate, a second by Mark. Kate, you've made some comments. You have anything else? Is the person making the motion gets first dibs?
Nope, no other comments.
Mark?
Just one other thing to add. We wanted to ensure that Bill was on board with all aspects of this, since it does refer to the superintendent in another number of places, and he did say that it had his approval. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, is there any discussion from any of the board?
It's Rick. Matt and Tammy, is this the way we're doing things right now? Does not change anything? This is exactly the way we're doing it? We're not putting any more work on you? Or any less?
No, this is pretty standard practice for hiring.
Awesome.
Anybody else? Okay, so I gotta ask some questions. I am definitely the fewer is better on policies. And we actually made a real move a few years ago to get, if it wasn't required as a policy, not to have it. Policies are very restrictive. A policy is a do or don't, and there's no leeway. And if we didn't need a policy, we could do it by an administrative procedure, then we moved a lot of those into being administrative procedures. And when we first formed River Valleys, that had been our Dover kind of mantra. And it had also been Wyndham Central mantra while I've been chairman over there. And I know that talking with Rick, that was kind of Wardsboro's mantra too, is, they had less policies than we did. Like the age of admission is not really, a lot of schools don't have that policy. We did just because we'd had a lot of issues. Why do we want to make this a policy if it's not required? Why doesn't this just become an administrative procedure? And it's just, I don't know. And just as an example, Matt and Tammy have a substitute that's been in both their buildings, and it's just a fantastic substitute. And they want to offer them that position. And I don't know if this policy allows them to do that, where maybe they're considering more of a promotion. The person's been a long time teacher. The teacher was in the schools previously. So I don't know, does this tie their hands a little bit? And I saw nothing in here about the appointment going to the board at all. And I gotta be very honest. I think when the board was more involved in hiring, it was to me, I think we wound up with, it seems as though the people fit better with the community, with the board, not saying that anybody doesn't fit. I know there was a lot of times that the board kiboshed some employees, some hirings that the administration wanted very badly. And the administration came to the board after the fact and was very thankful that we were so vocal, because they found that they were glad that that person didn't come under their purview. So I don't know, Matt and Tammy, maybe you can answer that. Do you feel that this could tie your hands at all? And could this just be a procedure versus a policy?
I guess I didn't feel when we were reviewing the policy that it did tie our hands, because like I mentioned earlier, it seems pretty standard practice to what we're presently doing. One of the things that Kate had mentioned, and I agree with, is that team members change. So yes, it could be an administrative procedure, but the next administrator might not do business the same way as it's being done currently. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. And also we have the hiring procedure, Rich, that includes that we bring people to the board and we include board members on the hiring teams whenever possible. So I don't personally feel like this is limiting us. Most of this is just the law anyway. And the other stuff in here is just common sense, human resource management. So I don't see any restrictions here that I'm worried about.
But my only point, I guess, is if this was required, if this was so important, it would have been a required policy. It wouldn't have been a recommended policy. And so that's the only reason I'm questioning it, but that's fine. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Wait, Rich?
Yep.
Matt raised his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
It's okay. It was right at the moment you were looking down. I just wanted to make a note that on page, I think it's page 4, under appointment, item 1, it reads, the appointment of licensed employees will be made by the board subject to the nomination of candidates by the superintendent of schools. Does that give you what you were looking for, Rich?
Yes, I didn't see that, Matt. Thank you.
Okay.
I really appreciate that. But again, if it's what we're doing now, my point was more, why are we having it if it's the same thing as we're doing? But thank you. So again, is there any other comments before we go to vote? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I,
Okay, it appears as though the ayes have it unanimously. The ayes do have it unanimously. So Matt and Tammy, make sure you warn that, get that one posted along with the age. The next one is F25, access control. Wasn't that who Maxwell Smart worked for, control or something?
Good TV show.
Kate, Mark, I think threw you under the bus on these new ones and he took the easy ones. So go ahead.
I'll take them if you want, Kate.
So we had a really good discussion on this one. This is about access to control to the buildings and safety and security of the teachers and the students. And we kind of talked about what we currently have at the different schools. And as a parent, I know that if in pre-COVID times, if my child arrived late, I would ring the doorbell and they would check us out on video, make sure we were who we said, and then they would buzz my student in. So it's just the safety and security type of policy. So we reviewed it, we went through it, and it seemed like it was a best practice. So I would like to recommend that we move forward and warn this as a policy.
So you made that motion that we warn this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Kate and second that we warn policy F25, access control. Peter, you good with that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Kate, any other thoughts you want to put out there?
No other thoughts.
Mark?
So I'll just say that similar to B20 discussion we had during B20 and also F26 coming up, we discussed whether having it was in any way hamstringing the administration's work, whether it would be beneficial to have this as a policy in order to ensure that no matter who is in those positions, that it would be followed that way, which is why we are recommending this as a best practice.
Okay, is there any comments from the board? Go ahead, Mark.
I should have said this before B20, but these three policies, B20, F25, and F26, were pulled out of the list of policies from the VSBA because we were looking to address or focus on security issues. And these were the policies that seem to either tangentially or directly affect security of the school and the people inside it. So.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Is there any other comments from the board?
I guess I'm just looking for purpose here. I mean, it's basically saying to us that we are going to give the administration the ability to give access and control to people into the building. I mean, that's really all I'm getting out of this. And I don't see a purpose in actually having this as a policy. I also have an issue with perhaps access and badges. I mean, I'm sure those things can change over time. It seems like technology changes continually and rapidly. And having those words in there would kind of hamstring us. That's all I've got. A hard time voting for this one.
Mark?
So the purpose is to make sure that there is always a policy on access control, rather than the possibility of an administrator coming in and not having one. In regards to the, Rick, I'm assuming you're talking about the very end of the second paragraph where it says electronic identification and access badge. I think that's a very generic terms that would be able to be met as technology changes.
It's not generic, Mark. It's what it is. It's what it says there. If it changes to something else, it's not an access badge. So therefore, the policy is.
But an access badge can be a number of different things even today. Could be anything from an RSA chip to a physical ID card, an ID on a phone. There's so many different things that it could be even today.
Again, Mark, this is one of the reasons I don't like policies. I tend to agree more with Rick on this. Access control privileges shall be determined and assigned by the superintendent or designee based on the specific needs and requirements of the district and the electronic identification / access badge. So it's saying that there will be electronic identification access badges. There's no not doing that, because policies are cut and dry. They are either they are or they aren't. Nobody can vary a policy but the board by voting to do it again. That's why policies are very restrictive, and I don't really like them. I mean, you can make a policy that says, for access control, and you can use your first paragraph, and then the second paragraph could be more generic, saying that the administrator will develop and report back to the board yearly what they're using for, security and access control. And that would kind of accomplish what you're wanting. And I think it gives more leeway to the administration. It says access control privileges shall be determined and assigned, on the requirements of the district and the electronic identification access badge. So there's going to have to be electronic identification access badges if you vote for this policy. So
if the board does, wants to vote it down as a policy committee, we'll be happy to take it back and review it and rework it.
okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. I have one more thing for discussion. Matt, you may remember, I don't, and it may have been under Bill's tenure. I know that's when we went and locked down the school. And you had to buzz in to get in, and we put the access window, we put the window in so they could sign in the lobby before being let in, and we had the push button stuff. And I remember there was a policy about keys because we were losing keys and we were rekeying the building so often. And nobody, that's when we went to the master key system. Is there a policy or was there a policy about that? Is that still around?
I think it was before my time, Rich. I'd have to dig a little bit and see. I don't know off the top of my head.
Mark and Kate, do you know, is there anything on the books now about keying or access or who gets control of the keys?
I'd have to double check. I'd have to go through all the policies. There isn't one that is specific to that though, the subject of it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve policy F25 to warn it. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? I believe the ayes have it unanimously. The ayes have it. So guys want to warn that policy. Mark and Kate, please understand, I'm not trying to belittle or negate anything that you're doing. I think you guys are doing a great job. I'm just not much of a policy person if we don't need it. So that's just me.
I can't speak for Kate, but I don't think either of us are taking it personally. I think the more eyes and heads you have on anything, the better. So we take everything that you guys say as important. So,
well, thank you. Kate, you want to do F26 security cameras?
Sure, I'll give a quick overview and then Mark can fill in the gaps. So we talked about security cameras and the existing procedures and things that we have with the cameras, and then possible ways that could be used. So this is just a policy to put in writing what things are and how the general principles of how the equipment would be used and how the data would be used. And then would like to move forward and warn the policy.
Okay, so you're making a motion that we warn policy F26 security cameras.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Mark seconds the motion. Kate, any other discussion?
No.
Peter, you got the motion all set, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mark, as a seconder, do you want to say anything else?
Just two quick things. Under general principles B, where it says that the district shall annually notify its students, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I believe that both Tammy and Matt felt that was a positive, that it isn't something that is currently in the handbook, but that it's something that should be, that everyone should be aware of. And the only other thing is that we talked about a number of the items in detail, including how long the video recordings have to be maintained, which in I says at least 30 days. And we talked about how the current system functioned, and Matt and Tammy felt that 30 days was, that the technology could cover that, that we wouldn't end up having things cut off and not being able to follow that 30-day minimum. I'd ask Tammy and Matt to correct me or fill in any holes over what I've just reported.
I think it was very accurate.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions from the board or from anybody?
It's Rick, this is all vetted legally too, right? I mean, this has been put through past attorneys and everything else. I just worry about us being liable for the camera that didn't see something that happened. And we're just warning this, right? I mean, we can have a much more lively discussion next time about it.
Yeah, but the better time to do it is now, Rick, so that if there is something we want to change, we can get it changed and include it in the warning. So if you do have something, then yeah, go ahead and I think.
Yeah, no, honestly, I didn't really read it in depth. So I'd like to give it a little better reading before I ask more questions.
Okay, but Mark, do you have, can you answer Rick's question?
I can. These policies have all been vetted by VSBA lawyers, not by River Valley's or WCSU lawyers specifically, but by VSBA lawyers.
Okay, and I think though the other point Rick is making is, do we wind up, because I know we do, I believe, Matt, have signs that your activities may be videotaped, and that came back from the skateboard incident when they used to skateboard on that front cement at the Dover school, and then they broke the doors with their skateboards. I think he's just Rick's other thing was, do we enlarge our liability because if we don't have a camera somewhere and something happened or a camera's not working. But again, VSBA, if they're recommending this, and then they would have, I don't think we'll get a whole bunch of different opinions from our local attorneys. But we could, Rick, that is definitely something we could ask that it be reviewed by, the WCSU or the River Valley's attorney if you wanted to do that.
I just don't think it could hurt. I just worry about our liability, and all of a sudden are we more culpable for more things that might happen that might not be seen because we have surveillance at this point in time. I do love the fact that you're actually putting this into your policy manuals and so forth, because I don't think everybody was completely aware, and it's just nice for everybody to know that they are being surveilled.
And if you wanted to, Rick, we could amend it. You could amend the motion or make a motion to amend to have it reviewed by an attorney before we do our final vote, if you wanted to, or we could vote this down and ask that it be reviewed ahead of time. Go ahead, Mark.
I was actually gonna call for tabling this until we get review from our local attorney. Bring it back up.
Well, we can't because there's been a motion made and a second, and so we would have to either vote it down.
We can table an active motion.
I think it needs a vote.
Yeah, the tabling needs a vote. It does.
Right. So there would have to be a motion made to that, but we have to deal with the motion. Motion's been made and seconded, so it has to be dealt with somehow. Okay.
Could we amend the motion to talk to the lawyer before we move forward on warning it?
Yeah, that you could amend the motion so we could warn it. Because if the attorney looks at it and says this is fine the way it is, then we've already gone through our warning period. So before we vote it to adopt it, while it's being warned, it can be reviewed, and then we could vote on it afterwards too. But that would be an amendment also. We can amend it either way. And while Mark is looking his stuff up, the one other question I was just going to comment, this doesn't talk about school buses at all. It talks about property and buildings. And I know at one time we talked about cameras on the school bus, how important they are. And we've actually, I think at one time when Laidlaw was doing our transportation out of Brattleboro, they actually had cameras on buses too. Do we need to add that to this policy, or is there a separate policy under transportation matter, Tammy, that speaks about the ability to put cameras on those?
That's a really great question, but I know that West River does have cameras on some of their buses.
Do we want to include that in this, or do we want to check and see if it's in the other policy first? And again, we can warn it and then we can vote not to adopt it, or we can vote not make a motion to adopt it to let it go. Go ahead, Mark.
So I don't, not to be a pain in the neck, I have to make sure I use proper words there. According to Robert's rules, once a motion is made to table a motion, the chair has to immediately call for a vote on that. That's not a debatable question.
Right. Did you make a motion to table it? You just said
I
we
did.
table it. Oh, you asked, you said I make a motion, we table this?
I didn't use the word motion. I said
You said we could table it.
I think I said,
And I
Peter,
said,
do you know
no,
what I
motion's
said?
been made and seconded, so we would have to make a motion to table it. If you would like to make a motion to table it, we'll take your motion up.
I will make that motion. I thought I already had.
Okay. I didn't think so, but again, we'll have to play the tape and you'll have to tell me if I did or if you did or didn't.
Go back to the recording.
Yeah. Do we have a second to the motion to table this motion? Kate, you'll second?
Table second.
Okay, so again, we have to have discussion. So Mark, you made the motion. Do you like to discuss it at all?
There's no discussion on tabling the motion.
There isn't.
They're not according to Robert's rules.
Okay. Then all those in favor of tabling this motion signify so by saying aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it. So that motion is now tabled. So guess what, guys? Our next meeting is January 4th at 6 p.m. And I believe that January 4th and January 18th. I believe it's January 4th. We talked about moving that meeting because it's a day of, it was the first day back to school for everybody and not to burden everybody. So just watch your emails. We may wind up putting that off. And the other reason I want to do that was so that we could get Lori involved, and we can also maybe let the legislators get a weekend up in Montpelier and see what they're going to do about town meetings in the meetings. So pay attention to that. And then the only other thing I got is an executive session for a legal issue where I'd like to have Matt and Tammy stay. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Since we may not meet on the 4th, just announce that the policy committee will meet on January 8th at 9 a.m. via Zoom.
Okay, you usually meet Fridays, I thought.
What did I say?
The 8th.
You said Friday, January 8th.
Oh, Friday, January 8th. Okay.
Okay.
I keep going to the right calendars. I thought you said Thursday, the 8th. Okay, so January 8th, at what time?
9 a.m.
And you are warning those and sending them out because I remember seeing the last one. It was fairly early. Okay. So if nobody else has anything, we're really down on people. Okay, can I entertain a motion to move into executive session for legal issue?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded at 7:32 to go into executive session for a legal issue. All those in favor say aye.
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 So at 7:53 p.m., by unanimous consent, we came out of executive session. And Rich and Laura and Rick and Mark will keep the board informed on the legal issue. We'll each take a small section of the legal issue to further research. And
I'm sorry, the last bit?
that there's we're each of us, Laura, Rick, myself, and Mark, are each taking a small portion of the legal issue to do some more research on. And we'll report back to the board on this legal issue at the next meeting.
Okay.
Richard,
Oh, yes, Laura.
I had one other thing that I wanted to say. Are we done with business before we adjourn?
Yes.
So I just want to say again, and I know that the whole board feels the same way. Matt and Tammy, excruciatingly hard year. All so much that you all have done, so much that we don't even know. Thank you. Thank the staff. And I hope you have the chance to have an uninterrupted and peaceful break over this holiday.
Hey, and while we're still on the record, I don't remember, but did I read the card we got from the Wardsboro staff at the last meeting, or was it? Okay, good. So guys, I just got some really good news, okay, that you're all going to really enjoy. Remember, the days start getting longer now. The nights get shorter, so we're moving closer to spring. So, and they delivered a whole bunch of vaccines, and even poor little Vermont got people started vaccinating. So let's all hope that we can have a pool party at my house for a board meeting at maybe May. May's usually a little cold, and you can bring the little guys, and then we can talk that trade about the puppies, Kate. So, if there's nothing else,
Golden retrievers.
oh, little lab mixes, you'll love them. Anyways,
Wait, was that an offer?
yeah, I was gonna trade. I want to get my wife a kid. She'll make her happy.
Wait.
I was gonna trade the kid for the dog.
Rich, I know one that's
I know,
going
I
up for
think Kate-
adoption pretty soon.
Hey, we've got a puppy.
So anyways, guys, have all of you have a happy holiday. Matt and Tammy, take some well-deserved breaks, and hopefully, we'll get all through this here soon. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn from whoever.
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. Laura seconds it. We're all in favor, and everybody have a great holiday season.
Thanks. Everybody enjoy your holiday.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
New Year, guys.
Have a nice break.
You too, Rich.
Happy holidays, you guys.
You too. Take care.
Guys.